Oh, me too. It's a great way to start out the day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
November 12th, 2021. We got Thanksgiving coming up, my favorite holiday.
Man, can't believe that that's already coming up here. November 12th.
Can't wait. I think I have said that the last couple of podcasts because I get so excited about it in November. Off to a beautiful morning. Went driving to the gym this morning, and it's just sunny and gorgeous, and like the leaves just finally started falling about 2 days ago, like in a big way, the big fall, so they're all about halfway. Half of them are on, half of them are down. It's like the most beautiful day of fall is what I mean. So I got a whole bunch of different ways I could take to the gym. And I decided to take North Park this morning, and we go right by our lake here, Upper Shaker Lake. And so because half the trees are half bare, you could see perfectly through everything, but there's all that color and the golden early morning sun shining through all this with the reflections.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The reflections coming off the lake. I wanted to get a picture for the podcast so bad, but I was driving, So I just thought I'd try to describe that for you, because it really was exhilarating, and it put me in this great mood. As there's Charlie, who's gotten so big, by the way.
No kidding.
It really put me in a great mood on my way to the gym, and I've been really trying to concentrate on this too, knowing that I am the owner, the co-creator of my reality. I'm trying to double down on that thought again and train my mind, because too often when we get trapped in our negativity, and there could be even the victimhood thoughts, it's because you're perceiving yourself as being not the master of your domain, let's say, and you're not realizing that you're the co-creator of your reality. So
you certainly are.
So I'm trying.
It's all about what's in between your ears there, right? I mean, that your happiness is in your head, and you're in charge of that. And you got to do things like stop and smell the roses, or check out that reflection on the lake. And I love that. I love that area, by the way. I remember beautiful. When I lived out there, that was one of my favorite areas to drive through, and I could actually picture that site in my mind as you were talking about it. Beautiful stuff. We don't get the fall kind of colors for the most part around here, but in some particular areas we do. Anne Marie and I took a great bicycle ride, this trail that I found last weekend, and it was surprisingly wooded. There was a lot of woods. Mostly the trail wasn't shaded, but it was like a dry riverbed with a lot of trees in the middle, and a lot of them were fall colors, and it just does something when you get to look at that. It's just beautiful. I love that.
So you're saying that you got to see the fall colors?
I got to see some fall colors. Yeah, it was really beautiful.
How cool.
And it kind of smelled nice and everything. Nothing like the Cleveland experience in the fall, but I got a little piece of it. And I also wanted to say, I just got my bicycle out of the bike shop, got a little tune up, and went on a ride last night.
And it was like a new bike.
Difference. Yeah, it was almost like motor powered.
I know.
It was amazing.
How long between tune-ups for you?
Well, I tell you what, I got a tune-up about 6 months ago at a bike shop I don't normally go to. Our bike shop had been closed down, the one I normally go to, because of the whole COVID crisis and the work shortage and everything. But I thought, oh man, I don't know. I was not happy with the tune-up, and I just thought maybe it was my bicycle. But now that I got it, my place opened up. And got it back, and oh my gosh, it was a joy.
I totally understand. I have noticed two things over the years that's just an art form, and that is adjusting your gears optimally and truing up your spokes so your tires are perfectly true.
Both of these things aren't things you can just do in your garage if you don't know what you're doing. And case in point, we were on that ride last week, and it was mostly a very slight uphill grade for the first half. And then on the second half, it was a downhill grade. And Anne-Marie was complaining about her derailleur. It was rubbing. And so you know how annoying that is?
That's really annoying.
And it was actually annoying me too. And I had a few tools in my bag and I said, hey, let me see if I can help you with that. And I totally screwed it up so that she couldn't switch it into high gear anymore. So she had to pedal real fast all the way down the hill.
That's funny.
But I got that fixed too at the bike shop. So we're golden now.
Cool. Hey, I just want to share with you real quick. You and I were talking briefly last night and about the show, and I was like, oh God, I don't have much to share. Well, between that and this morning, I found a lot of good stuff to share. But so much to talk about anyway, but it's nice when we can share with the audience some audio, video, that kind of stuff. But my real point is I had to go because I was getting a Airbnb ringtone going off in my ear. And my new renters were just coming in, and it was a great conversation, actually, texting back and forth. And so he came here, he and his wife came here with his dog. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I'm showing you this picture of these two dogs, and the black one is Dodger. Well, his buddy Kaiser passed away a few months ago. And so this is Dodger here. And they came here from Missouri. They drove here from Missouri because his wife found this beautiful collie here. She's a rescue, and they're coming to pick her up over this weekend. And so we just went back and forth on that. And he's also like, man, you left me a couple Miller Lights in the refrigerator. I'm so happy after that long drive. Thank you. And that's all. I just wanted to say that it makes my heart so full to know that I'm being a part of this beautiful dog getting rescued and making their family whole. When those things happen, it makes me very happy. That is
really cool.
My house is so dog friendly over there, and I love when most people come, they have a dog, and it just makes me happy that the house is being used. Speaking of dogs, there's Charlie in the background. Restless as all. He's such a puppy. He may be going in the cage soon, but I wanted to just start off with that because that made me feel really good going right into this morning. And I wanted
to say that the fact that you left beer in the refrigerator for him. I mean, I've done some B&B stuff before. I think that would be awesome after driving along. And I saw his comment after driving all that way, and that was like the best beer that he could have had. I'm thinking, man, that must have been a long ride. Miller Lite was the best beer you ever had.
I love Miller Lite myself. It's my favorite.
Is it really your favorite? Wow.
It is.
Well, hey, that's pretty cool though. What a great touch.
I wanted
to put in there.
I also put out for everybody a bag of snacks, all these little mini snacks. And I got that from another Airbnb guy that I stayed at. I always pick up a trick from other Airbnb hosts when we stay somewhere. I did want to ask you about that, and I kind of forgot about the beer thing. I don't think I've ever done that. Now, I just happen to have a couple of non-alcoholic beers, like these craft non-alcoholic beers. Now, I already drank that. Another tenant left. They left me like 6 of them. Well, I drank 4 of them. They were so good, non-alcoholic.
Right.
But then I had some of my Miller Lights from my stay, and I had a couple left over. And I thought, well, I got these 2 non-alcoholic ones, these 2 Miller Lights. I'm just going to leave them because I've thought about this, and I wonder your opinion. I wonder anybody's opinion that may want to chime in and leave a comment for us at over50startingover.com. You go to our blog post there, leave a comment, or simply on the YouTube video.
Right.
We really appreciate feedback. What I've always wondered is, I've thought about leaving a bottle of wine and a couple Miller Lights. You don't know someone's preferences.
Right.
Dog, don't start. What if they're a recovering alcoholic?
Oh, I didn't think of that.
I kind of tend to think the safe thing to do is never leave alcoholic beverages behind. But this guy was so appreciative. I mean,
yes, he was. Yes, he was.
What do you think?
Well, I hadn't actually considered that, but it might be something that you preface, as you're making arrangements. Hey, I was thinking about leaving this behind. Do you have
That's
a
a good
preference?
thought. That's a good thought.
Maybe that would be good, because I guess I could see if you were an alcoholic or something, and that would be terrible temptation as soon as you came in, and you might not get your place back.
That's funny because what if it's like, oh my God, I got to get out of my neighborhood because I'm trying to recover and I need different surroundings. And here's some really nice wine. Here's some beer.
Right,
how about some Coke?
right. That could, boy, I would imagine that 9 out of 10 times that would be it's a great thing that you put that in there, but that one time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like I said, I'd appreciate anyone's feedback on that, to say the least. But moving right along, I just also wanted to give you the Browns update, NFL update quickly, because Lisa says every week, I hate when you do this Browns thing.
so you've got to do it now.
So I have to do it. So, last week there was all the drama about Odell Beckham Jr., the self-proclaimed star receiver wanting to get out. We released him. So it was like, what's going to happen? Is the locker room going to be in disarray, or are they going to come back together and gel? They clobbered the AFC North leading Bengals 46-16. And the offense looked crisp. Yeah, on the same page. So that's great. But now, we already got 4 losses under our belts here. So the Browns only had 5 losses all last season. So the division, the AFC North, Browns division, is like the toughest in the NFL. And so we got the Patriots Sunday, and always tough with Bill Belichick.
Yes, which makes me mad just thinking about it.
I know. And
why didn't he do that great when he was the Browns coach? I can't get that out of my head. They were just
talking about that on Sports Talk Radio.
Is that right?
And that was when Art Modell just announced that they're going to. Rumors started that they were going to move the team at the end of the season. They were picked to go to the Super Bowl that year, and if they didn't move the team, Belichick may still be here, and we would have had what they got in New England.
The dynasty.
Yeah, could very well have been, but that's what happened. And what I just heard this morning as well, both our star running backs are out with a COVID outbreak, and a couple others as well. So we got, once again, shorthanded, and let's see what happens.
Boy, there sure is a lot of crazy stuff, especially with the COVID part too. It's the wild card in these games, and that's too bad that happened. I was just talking to a colleague of mine this week, and he found out that I was from Cleveland. He was asking if I was a Browns fan, and we had to go through that whole story. But he said that he knew somebody that's 55, and he lives in Florida, but he said that this woman has been planning a Browns Super Bowl party ever since she was 12 years old.
That's like not her wedding, not that's usually a Brown Super Bowl party.
And I talked about how we talk about this on the show, and I was thinking, if the Browns ever make it to the Super Bowl, they'll be up by 7 with 2 minutes left in the game, and Jesus comes back and it's all over. We don't get to the end of this. Something like that would happen.
You're exactly right. That's funny. A final piece of just intro news. I got an email from my edwardscom.net contact page this week, and Scott, I don't have it in front of me. Somebody reached out and said that he was friends with Irby back from like 1999 through 2003. And I'm talking about my dear friend, Irby Greenwood, who passed away a few months ago.
Yeah.
He found a video and said that it was just a really great tribute to him, and he just wanted to reach out and say how they were friends through work way back then. They used to go out to lunch all the time together, and just shared a few memories that got me all choked up all over again, but in the good way, man. Hit me right in the feels. We just corresponded via email back and forth a couple times, and if you're listening, Scott, I just really, really appreciated that. It made my heart just all full again. So
boy. Well, it sure was
Irby
great that we were
touched a
able
lot
to
of people.
have him on the show and talk about his son's passing, the murder of his son, actually, and his thoughts. So real and so down to earth, and it was such a an amazing thing that he was able to open up like that and just share his heart without any shields. I mean, he just put it out there
so much during that COVID starts. His son gets murdered. He's facing a triple bypass kind of out of the blue, and then is dealing with all of that all at once. It was that's how we got so close, because there was just a lot going on, and we just spent a lot of time together as a result.
Right.
All right, moving on with the show. I gotta pull something up, a blast from the past. I forgot about this graphic that I spent all this time on making. But Merle, I gotta tell you, this is going to be kind of interesting. I was looking for something to watch on Amazon Prime the other night, and I came across the movie that you brought up about 3 weeks ago, 1984.
Right.
That came out in 1984. And I got to tell you, like at that time, when you brought that up, I hadn't seen the movie since like 1984.
Wait, the movie came out in 1984?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't realize
how
that.
appropriate. I actually looked that up because I wasn't sure either. But it was so long since I saw it. And I was so young. I would have been 18 at that time, or 19.
Yeah, right. We're graduating.
Yeah. And I replied to you saying, I thought it was a little over the top, but blah, blah, blah. I got to tell you something. Watching that today, first of all, it stands the test of time. It's so well done. It's so well made. And, but it was like a magical prophecy. It was like Nostradamus. And it still kind of is. When, we talked about Yemeni Parks on a couple of occasions about how she was such a natural barometer, coming from being raised in the horrors of North Korea, which we really knew nothing much about, and going to China, the horrors that happened there. But then she went to South Korea to get educated, and it's like, wow, what a, they're all about a real strong education. They're all about that. Yes. And a pretty progressive society as well. Then she comes to America to go to university, and had the worst experience. And that's came to light in a Jordan Peterson podcast for me the first time. Then she was on Joe Rogan later, but it blew Jordan Peterson away. He did not know. He's been a professor forever and has only been out of it for a few years now due to mostly health reasons. But he was so visibly shaken by her reports on what college is like in Ivy League schools here in America now. It's just all critical race theory type stuff, ultra PC, your pronouns, and nothing, getting no real education. She said, don't go. And he said, come on, really? He's distraught at this point. He says, is there not a single class or a single professor that you can point out and say, well, this one was good, exceptional, what have you? And she paused and thought about it truly for a while. And she said, no, I learned nothing there. They're more concerned with your pronouns and your feelings than they are giving you an education. Now, back to 1984, Merle, I just jotted down several bulleted points of what struck me about that movie. And first of all, I recall you saying, listen, highly recommend it, but have something really light and positive on the heels.
Absolutely, because it'll take you down a peg or two.
It's so bleak. Oh my God, it's so bleak. Here are just bulleted points that I put down that I was blown away. This came out in 1984, people. They depicted the rewriting of history, that they are rewriting history for the common folk, the proletariats, so that they could then, manipulate from there. They took total 100% control of the media. Now, again, think back to what we discussed about North Korea. So they rewrote history as well with, I always forget his name.
Winston.
No, talk about the leader of North Korea.
Oh.
Yeah, but so total control of the media. They depicted mind wiping through electroshock therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we know that we have been doing that for decades here in America. Now we know it's still going on in Guantanamo Bay, but we have done that throughout the decades here, and it's been unearthed, the records of it. Even though the cover up, they tried to do a very extensive cover up. Loss of identity, your personal identity. Now you only identify with the party and the leader of the party only, not even your loved ones. Fear. Okay, this is like the moral to the whole story. Fear is more powerful and controlling than death itself. They did not fear death at all. He's like, please shoot me, please.
Right.
And that's going to be a reality. Another thing that they depicted in there, forever wars.
Yes. Wasn't that an interesting thing? The forever wars.
So all of that was
just, they went into great detail on the forever war part inside of the book. And, you know, when you start to consider the forever wars that we've been fighting here, the war against terrorism, the war against poverty, these things
trying to do that with Afghanistan.
Yeah, these things have been going on and on and on. And of course, you know, we've got, we still have forever wars that are going on right now, and in one form or another. And we find out that gives the party complete control with these wars. You noticed with the Afghanistan thing, it didn't matter if there was a Republican or a Democrat in the White House, the war kept going on. And it's pretty interesting, even how we backed out of this Afghanistan thing. To me, it's a setup for the next war.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So this was just, to me, disturbing on every level, because we see it right now. What's really bothering me a ton is this rewriting of history thing, that it happens every time you start heading towards a dictatorship. And we have the proof of that going on with CRT in schools, and we talk a lot about it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that is exactly what they're doing now. It depends on what side of history you want to lean into and maybe prop up a bit. So if you want to talk about how bad Christopher Columbus was, or Thomas Jefferson because he had slaves, and all these different things, and lean into that, that's fine. But you're also going to, because they want to set up, oh, white men are evil and horrible, and responsible for slavery, the slaughter of the American Indians and all that. Therefore, white people today need to pay the price, and all the different things that come with it. And it's completely racist, as we know. Racism will always be around, but America is the least racist country in the entire world. And the atrocities that are going on all over the world right now, including slavery in many different forms, I've said it before on here, is the sex slave industry, human trafficking going on right here in the United States right now is so prolific that, and we hardly talk about that. So we have real things that we need to come together, unite, and try to make better. We have been making everything better for everybody for a very long time. Now is not the time to get divided up and then lose our free speech and then head down this road of tyranny. And anyways, I want to get on to whatever you want to talk about.
There was a motto, Barry, in the book regarding that last point that you're making, which was whoever controls the past controls the future.
That's exactly right.
And so really, when you have a despot or a totalitarian government, they're going to be very interested in rewriting history. Yeah. That's it. And that fits right into their agenda. And you're right. We're seeing that all over the place. The first time I heard of the 1619 movement, this was perpetrated by the New York Times. Now it's actually inside of our textbooks. They rewrote our history and talked about how this new world, the people that came to the new world were simply trying to perpetuate slavery. And really, that was a huge departure from everything we ever learned in history. Never had we learned that before. This was absolutely new history, which there's really no such thing as new history. But in the book 1984, it was said that two plus two equals five. Yeah. Unless the party says that 2 + 2 = 3, then 2 + 2 = 5 never happened. Just like the war that they were having against their enemies. I forgot the name of their enemy now, but it was we've always been at war with this country. But then the next day, yeah, it was Eurasia. The next day, they could change it to their other enemy, and then it was, it's a skill that they learned. They had to forget that they had the war with Eurasia and then say the party line that we've always been at war with this other country. So it's really a scary thing when you start to take a look at it and how the party actually controls things. And you know what, Barry, I was doing a little bit of studying on this very subject regarding parties. And did you know that George Washington, our first president, is the only president that was not a part of a political party?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in fact, he was very, very much against any kind of a party system. And I wanted to read you something.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, but I think you're going to be more interested in what he had to say about why he was against the party system. You have to look at his administration, and you brought up Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was in his cabinet, as well as Alexander Hamilton. Nice. And both of them had very differing views on how the country was going to go forward. Hamilton saw things more from a centralized government point of view, a strong centralized federal government, while Thomas Jefferson was all about the power of the states. Remember, he was the one that wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he was a big leader in Virginia. And remember, it was the federal government was formed at the pleasure of the states. The states formed the federal government.
Yeah.
And so they never wanted to lose their power. Well, this difference got very ugly within the Washington administration. In fact, so ugly that Thomas Jefferson ended up resigning.
Wow.
Get this. So this in George Washington's farewell address, remember, he was the president for 2 terms, and this is what he wrote in his farewell address, or what he said in his farewell address. He says that the party serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosities of one part against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. Haven't we seen that?
Wow.
He's like Nostradamus here. To that effect, he wrote this: the alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries have perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns his dispositions to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Wow. And finally, he says this: however, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines, which by cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust domination.
I can't believe how well written that is.
I mean, that was a speech.
Yeah. Oh, that was a speech. Okay.
Yeah, that's what he said in his farewell address. If you ever get a chance to read his acceptance address for his first presidency too, it's like a complete prophecy of America. Wow. I mean, this guy, if you read the history of George Washington, this is another thing, Barry, about history, is that I really feel like when we were taught history, it was so watered down.
Yeah.
We didn't really get the real history
Totally
of America.
Agree.
I mean,
it was almost like reading a comic book.
It was, George Washington, I never tell a lie, he chopped down a cherry tree. What? Did that even really ever happen? Who cares if it happened?
Right.
But you read the history of this guy and what he did before the Revolutionary War, how he was involved in the French Indian War, and some of these stories are mind-blowing, especially when he's in the Revolutionary War. This guy was quite a guy. I don't think we've ever had a president like him since. And again,
wow,
very against a party system. And if you take a look at the party system that formed in the next presidency and beyond until today, it was the party system, Republicans against the Democrats, that caused the Civil War.
There you go.
620,000 people killed each other during that war. And we got to take a look at what's happening today. It's one of the things George Washington is saying is that we forget about what's good for America, and we only want to make sure that our party gets in there.
God, it's so true.
People go to the polls and all they care about is it a Democrat or a Republican? And they don't know anything about who's running. And besides all that, we've allowed the federal government to become so powerful that look, they're dictating our every move. They know too much about us. They're mandating that we take certain things into our body, or that it's ridiculous when really the foundation of this country is local government and state government. And unfortunately, most of us don't even know who the people are that are leading our own local government. That's where the power really is supposed to be.
I want to back that 1,000%. I think that's the biggest problem that we have in this nation today. Things at the federal level, it's gotten so big that there's so much anonymity. I always have such a hard time with that word, but
good.
So when they're voting for corporate interests and stuff like that, they always just blame the other people. I'm here trying to do the right thing, but all these people are just, all voting for their corporate interests. And if we could probably do two things to get back to what you said. One, I really believe if we just had an independent party come to rise that didn't stake claims to their beliefs outside of freedom of speech and so on, that I think that would do us a whole lot of good, so that you could just get the moderates from the Democrat and Republican Party into this independent party and start to heal some things and let the radicals stay on the fringes. And so we can just expose it for the ridiculousness that it is. But the power has to go back to the individual states. People here always like to bring up the Scandinavian countries as these examples of paradise. And I'm always reading about that, little things here and there on Quora. And I was just, again, doing this, reading some good stuff this week, and from people in the Norwegian countries. One guy's like, yeah, I'm from Finland. You guys like to call it a social democracy and base the United States idea of utopia on that. He goes, call it what you want. We go from more socialist to a more conservative regime all the time. We go back and forth. And he goes, but we have really high taxes. We have a very good infrastructure. But he says that it's a very homogenized community. This is the thing about each one of those individual countries, and we have said this repeatedly on here, is that they're small. They're the size of one of our states. It's coming back to that. And they have very secure borders. It's almost like a gated community. You're all in it. Right. You all bought into the same thing. So it's close to communism in a way, because you're all on board and want to just preserve this as it is right now. And there is a degree of seductiveness to that. I get it. Well, if you want that here in the United States, you're going to have to give the power back to the states and let them run independently. We also mention all the time. So if you're in Iowa, you can do things as people in Iowa should do. But if you're in New York City, you're going to have to do things very differently. In California, whatever the hell you guys are trying to do out there, I suggest you try something different. But what are your thoughts on? I'm just backing up exactly. Like, the power has to go back to the states, but the federal government's gotten too big.
Well, it has, and and on top of that, what we see is a bureaucratic system that is really not even, as we've talked about several times, not even a part of our constitutional government. It's not, the bureaucracies are not mentioned. There's no power of Congress to give their power to any other entity in order to legislate. In fact, I just happen to have the Constitution pulled up right now. It says in Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, which covers our legislative body, that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. It says all legislative powers. You look at Article 2, which is the presidential powers, Article 3, which is the judicial powers. There are no legislative powers or the ability to make law in this land in any of those entities. This is what's called the separation of powers. So Congress has given up that legislative power to bureaucracies in order to make so-called mandates. Mandates are laws. Laws are not supposed to be made by any other entity besides Congress. That's in the Constitution. That's the law of the land. But we've allowed that to happen. So when a president, it doesn't matter who it is, but when a president decides to rule by executive order or pushing his will into a bureaucracy to make a mandate, these are anti-constitutional measures and they should be illegal. They should be struck down by the third power, which is the judicial system. And what we're seeing is this whole lackadaisical attitude by the population. We just go along with it. And this is a danger. This is how absolute power corrupts absolutely, as we talked about. And that leads us directly back to 1984. That's what happened. And that's what Orwellian means. Yeah. This is what 1984 is all about. And this power leads typically to death. And that's exactly what was happening in 1984. The main character of the story is trying to evade death the entire story. And it's a story that we've seen play out time and time again throughout history. And it looks like we're caught in the crosshair of that here in America.
It looks inevitable.
It does look inevitable, but if the people would just open up their eyes to see what's happening, there's more of us here in this country that care than in any other country that's had this happen. I mean, there's more education here. There's more people in the know. We have a constitution here. We have a history of freedom. This would be the one and only place I would say has the ability to fight back, but will they?
Hey, I got a positive here. I can see a positive. So I can identify with anarchists. I can identify with everybody that is feeling hopeless and pissed off. I mean, the younger generation, we often fall in the same trap is, saying, oh my God, these guys, they don't know what it's like to have it hard. And so they've had it too soft. They got participate. I'm guilty of this the whole way. Participation trophies. And so now they're whining about, the white man did this. I think they're misguided as to where they're going. But they're going in the necessary direction. Nihilism leads to something of an anarchy, a revolution. Blow it up. It's not working anymore. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. For the younger generation, the cards are stacked against you. We say all the time, we're usually talking about ourselves. Oh, we're taxed to death. The middle class cannot be squeezed anymore. But the truth of the matter is, if you're 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, you're looking at this, how do I get ahead? I can't buy a house. I'm saddled with all this college debt. I didn't, it's so stacked against you. And I mentioned before that Jordan Peterson talks about the Pareto Principle. And I thought he was saying Pareto Principle, and I could never find anything on it. Well, he did a podcast on it last week. And again, I got it this time. It's Pareto, I should say. He says it so fast, it sounds like Pareto. But the Pareto Principle is like the 80-20 rule. And I think it could be, even 80-20 tends to get more and more concentrated, meaning all throughout, not just society, all throughout everything in nature, everything tends to follow the 80-20 rule. He says even intergalactically, something like the stars end up 80% of the mass goes in one place and 20% goes other. And it's seen throughout everything in nature. 80% tends to capture all the stuff that 20, this is how it is. You could even look it up, and it, like, the definition is something like 20% of stuff produces 80% of the stuff.
Right.
Right. And so what that comes down to is, in human beings, 20% of the top most capable of human beings produce 80% of our stuff, our production.
Yes.
And so somehow or another, I'd have to re-listen to all this, study it more. It's complicated, but that's how our wealth tends to always, in every society, get concentrated to the top 20%, but then that goes to 10%, then it goes to 5%, and so on. So they have 90% of our wealth. Literally 90% of the population has 10% of it, and yet we're paying 90% of the taxes. That's how it comes to a pinnacle, and you got to blow it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, the way that things have gone here are they have gone that way. It's interesting that 80-20 rule does work and everything. I've been in sales almost all my life, and 80% of the sales always come from 20% of the sales force. Those are the producers. And when you get to the top 10% or the top 5, they're the ones that are giving the majority in that 20%. So that's how it's just, it's always how it works. It's really a law.
Yeah, it truly is. And that's what's always argued amongst these philosophers. I wanted to ask you, and this is changing gears a bit. It's kind of getting into current events. If you want to say anything more about what we're talking about,
no, go ahead.
I like the philosophical conversation of it.
Me too.
I'm wondering if you saw this Adam Schiff getting outed on The View of all places. So did you see the video?
I did. I love this. Go ahead.
All right, but I just want to set it up first. So Adam Schiff has been pimping this new book of his, and it's not even bother. I didn't even bother looking up what the book is. Who would want to read a book by Adam Schiff? Spent the last 5 years looking into CNN's camera and promising and swearing that they have the evidence of Russian collusion.
Yes, he did.
And the Steele Dossier has been exposed to be completely bought by the Democratic Party. Look, I don't mean to get partisan and slam the Democratic Party. I can go on with the Republican Party too. But in this case, now, okay, the whole Trump derangement syndrome really took everything to a whole new level. And Schiff was, right in the crosshairs of that. So he's been very careful and selective about where he's been doing his press junket for this book, right? He doesn't, he wants an easy audience. Of course, he's going to go on The View. Well, Megan Ortega, who's a Fox commentator and a really sharp lady, happens to be guesting on the show at that time, much to his chagrin. And so let me play that short bit of that clip.
I want to ask you about something that's in the news a lot right now. You've been really prolific over the past few years being the head of the Intel Committee, and you defended, promoted, you even read into the congressional record the Steele Dossier. And we know last week the main source of the dossier was indicted by the FBI for lying about most of the key claims in that dossier. Do you have any reflections on your role in promoting this to the American people?
Well, first of all, whoever lied to the FBI or lied to Christopher Steele should be prosecuted, and they are. And unlike in the Trump administration, if they're convicted, they should go to jail, not be pardoned. So Donald Trump pardoned Roger Stone for lying. He pardoned Michael Flynn for lying. If people lied to the FBI, they should go to jail. But at the beginning of the Russia investigation, I said that any allegations should be investigated. We couldn't have known, for example, people were lying to Christopher Steele. So it was proper to investigate them. And let's not forget what we learned in that investigation. We learned that the Trump campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was giving internal polling data, campaign polling data, to Russian intelligence while Russian intelligence was helping the Trump campaign.
And to be clear, he was fired halfway through the campaign.
Well, he may have been fired, but the effort to get Russian help continued, and even beyond the effort to get Russian help.
But you may have helped spread Russian disinformation yourself for years by promoting this. I think that's what Republicans and what people who entrusted you as the Intel Committee chair are so confused about your culpability in all of this.
Well, I completely disagree with your premise. It's one thing to say allegations should be investigated, and they were. It's another to say that we should have foreseen in advance that some people were lying to Christopher Steele, which is impossible, of course, to do. But let's not use that as a smokescreen to somehow shield Donald Trump's culpability for inviting Russia to help him in the election, which they did, for trying to coerce Ukraine into helping him in the next election, which he did, into inciting an insurrection, which he did. None of that is undercut. None of that serious misconduct is in any way diminished by the fact that people lied to Christopher Steele.
No, I think just your credibility is.
Well, I think the credibility of your question is in doubt.
All right. I have a question.
All right. Boy, I got to hand it to Ortega there. She's a
cool cucumber, boy.
There you go. You nailed it. And really smart, and didn't let him off the hook with his little word salad spin. And I got to tell you, there has got to be charges being brought up here, and not just him, everybody involved with the dossier. Do you know, they always slippery slide right out of this stuff,
right
at this high level, but it's horrible what they did to the country with this. Okay, they go on CNN for 4 or 5 years and are lying to the American public. It's totally uncovered that the Democratic Party paid for all of this. And even, how about just slander charges against, I hate trying to defend Trump. He's indefensible, but they came up with all this crap about the sexual stuff going on in Russia. Do you remember that?
Right. Yes.
So I think all of this is disgusting, but it's also, it's unearthing the corruption in our government, like plain as day.
I think it's very interesting, some of his talking points there. I've listened to this a few different times, and I tried to have a very objective view of this and try not to be partisan myself on this. As much as I really don't like Adam Schiff, I tried to really just listen to his defense here. And he brought up, of course, he wanted to blame Trump for everything. Immediately he went to, Trump is a terrible person. Yeah. And that was, he actually accused Ortega of putting up a smoke screen, but this was the actual smoke screen was, are you culpable in this? Well, let's look at how bad Trump is. No, the question was, are you culpable? That's not that you're not answering the question, but he brought up a couple of things. One was that he had elicited the Ukraine to help in the election. And really, he was, if you really look back at that, he was really talking about Burisma and how the involvement of Hunter Biden with Burisma. And when you start to take a look at what happened with Burisma, you see complete corruption right there, and not to mention what happened in China. And we have these things that are still out there regarding the Biden family, actually, that have, remember, the New York Post was actually censored. They weren't allowed to put the news articles on Twitter and all the other big tech platforms. Back to 1984 again. And this is the guy right here that was the mouthpiece for the entire thing. We find out that the whole investigation started by the Steele Dossier was, in fact, like you said, made up. And we're finding out also that the central figures that came up with the information weren't even in Russia. They were actually part of the Democratic Party. Back to George Washington again, and what he was talking about with the party system is that the public became blinded. As we say, Trump derangement syndrome. The general public became blinded by this two-party fighting that has been going on all of this time. And I'm saying that people were blinded on the left and on the right. There shouldn't be a left. There shouldn't be a right. There should just be one America. And the fact is that people were blindly picking sides, and I like this guy or I like this guy, and not even looking at the facts here. In this case, it was they had to do anything they could to get Trump impeached. And both of those impeachment trials were a complete sham, complete disgrace for any person that's a real American. We're not talking about party systems right here. We're talking about a corruption of our system, especially our legal system. And that brings up this whole Rittenhouse trial that's happening right now. And really what you look at with this Kyle Rittenhouse, this all happened 2 summers ago, and it was at the time of a presidential election. And you've got these the Trump and Biden campaigning, and this riot happens that the Democrats seem to be all behind, and the Republicans seem to just be ignoring. So they're both culpable in this whole thing. But this kid gets used to make political points, and even you're looking at this trial. People that tried to support the Kyle Rittenhouse and in the payment for his trial, a lot of those people were harassed or fired from their jobs. This is outrageous when you start to take a look at the sanctity of our legal system, or the image of justice being blind. What we're seeing is our justice system is being completely politicized, and that's a danger to all of us. Again,
do you know how dangerous
1984 thing? We get to a point where we can arbitrarily ruin somebody's life or put somebody away forever, or even take their life away just to make political points. That is a sick world. The kid, he was 17. The fact is, there's video evidence of this thing, multiple angles, even drones. You can see what happened. And you would think that this kid came over there, chased a bunch of people down, and decided to coldly murder people. And
that's how it's laid out in mainstream media.
Yeah, and depending on what news station you look at, you're going to get both of those views. I was just looking at a CNN version of what's happening, which was completely different than the Fox News version of it. And look, we got to be careful. Every one of these news agencies has an agenda, and the agenda is not to tell the truth. The agenda is to have more power, more political credit, more influence, and we've got to be clear-eyed about that whole thing.
Well, Merle, I think that we are very soon going to see the ramifications once again of what's going on. So I'm sure that when the verdict comes out and he's acquitted, I watched the 5 last night, 2 episodes of it. You know, I haven't watched a lot of it lately, but when they were talking about this, they had Judge Janine on there and Geraldo Rivera. He's a lawyer. She's a judge. And so they could give you a very factual what's up of what's going on here. Now, Judge Janine is always so over the top from the right, kind of bothers me, but she states her facts as how clear cut this case is that it's, dismissal, that they went and pursued charges recklessly right away without looking at evidence because of the politics behind it. Geraldo he's always going to come from a more humanitarian point of view. And he says, this is just a reckless kid, kind of dopey, has a hero thing going on in him. But he also does come to the same conclusion that the video, if you watch the real video, that I can't find, mind you, because I wanted to share it, but I can't find it because it's being censored. But in the courtroom, they clearly have video, as you said, this drone footage and other things that this kid, it was purely self-defense.
Right.
And so it's going to be a clear acquittal. And when that happens, and at least a third of the country is snowblind by CNN and MSNBC, we're going to see the riots all over again.
Yeah, see, now this goes to the point of politicizing these trials, and it seems like people are blinded by the partisan politics, and that devoid of facts. It doesn't matter if there's a video that clearly shows that this is self-defense. If you have a particular political opinion, he's guilty or he could be innocent. But you have to look at the facts. The facts are very clear from multiple angles, because this wasn't just recorded by a drone. It was recorded by several people that have video footage. We already have the witnesses corroborated the story here. The one witness said that he pointed a gun directly at Kyle Rittenhouse. You can see where he gets smashed in the head with a skateboard. Yeah. You can see that he's being chased by a mob and beaten. That's what we have to take a look at. But
and there's also a larger point of purpose here too, is that the law enforcement was told to stand down. So they literally were just observing all this without getting involved, which created the void for somebody like this to get into that situation.
And that just reminds me too, as soon as this happened, he ran to the police. What person guilty of murder runs to the police? You're going to run in the opposite direction. I mean, this is a kid too. He's 17 years old. I think, to your point, the police are told to stand down. This is happening more and more. So what do citizens do in the void of that protection?
Good question. We're seeing that. We've been seeing all week in the papers that, if you dig enough, Seattle, Chicago, New York, the crime is through the roof.
Los Angeles as well. Today, in the news, we are seeing
San Francisco,
here in Los Angeles, that the recommendation from the police authorities are bleak when it comes to the crime spree that's going on. We've got a new thing happening right now called they're calling it follow home. And what's happening is that people are going, they're buying jewelry or something, and then they're being followed home and then robbed there. And the police are recommending that you cooperate and and just let them have whatever they want, and then and be a good witness and call 911. The problem is that we've got a district attorney here, Gascon, came from San Francisco. He's a Soros candidate, completely funded by Soros, who has decided not to prosecute crime here in this county. And as a result, you have this, it's like the Wild West out here now. Yeah. And we've defunded large parts of the police force. So if you call 911, we'll be there in an hour. Yeah. It's like you're waiting for a pizza to be delivered. By then you're dead. So maybe that is good advice in the void of any kind of protection. But here we have a Second Amendment for a reason. And this is what this kid decided is, hey, I'm just not going to let this kind of thing happen. We have to protect ourselves. And in protecting ourselves, the message is very clear coming from our federal government, because this is a federal prosecution, that if you try to protect yourself, we're going to put you away. And that is, this is really what the totalitarian government is. Let's not forget that it was Joe Biden himself during the campaign that labeled Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist immediately.
Yeah.
And here, he didn't shoot any black people. So I'm trying to figure out how you are a white supremacist in this situation.
I got to tell you, I forgot about that. And that's so disturbing that our president goes and feeds that fire. I'm going to say again, when the verdict comes out and he's acquitted, these cities, as you just mentioned, are going to go up, be burnt up again. And by the way, all of them have had insurrections taking place, and we're going to see major insurrections take place. But I'll get back to another point. Is it inevitable? I understand the frustration with everything in this country right now. Is it inevitable? Do we have to blow it up? It kind of seems like that is just the way it goes naturally. I mean, Is there a way we put a thumb in the dike? Do you actually reverse things? I don't know. Like, we've never been here before because technology's never gone crazy the way it's gone crazy in the last 20 years. You know what I mean?
I think you're right about that, is that if we take a look at the technology here, the way that the information can be spread so quickly to whip up an angry mob, it's astounding, really, when we take.
But on the other hand, too, is that the growing audience of podcasts like this is getting a real education on what's going on and seeing different views, and millions of people are actually realizing that mainstream media is completely done. It's it's bought, sold, and complete manipulation. So can there be that uprising? Can there coming up, if we can make it 3 more years, we got another election coming up, and during that time, can a new party, as we've been talking about, rise and start to communicate all of this and bring a more awareness to everybody else? Can that happen?
It seems like a miraculous. It would take a miracle, I think, at this point, and it's a big uphill battle. But to your point, though, Barry, I just want to read this excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. Says, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces and designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And this is our founding document. This is what the Constitution is based on. This is the rock the Constitution stands on, and these founding fathers are in complete agreement with everything you just said, Barry.
Yeah, kind of thinking like if there was a way to put a side network together for the governors of for mayors to governors to the states, to get the states cooperating in an independent capacity.
I think that's the key, Barry. I think that's the key, is that the states, where the power really lies in the Constitution, need to band together. It can't be just 1 or 2 states out there. These governors of these states need to band together and say, look, federal government, we're just not going to comply with any unconstitutional rules that you put out there. And there's nothing that the federal government could do on that front. And what we are actually seeing the rise of that happening right now, especially with this OSHA mandate that's coming down the pike right now, which is extremely unconstitutional. The federal government does not have the power to do that. And in fact, all of the federal government leaders have said up until just 2 months ago that they didn't have the power to do that. And then suddenly they changed history. Very interesting how it keeps coming back to that, Barry.
It is. I think we should probably be winding up. I got something I want to talk to you about in the after show about the Democrats at odds over the SALT changes, the state and local taxes. And I've tried to fully comprehend it, but what I do understand about it is this is how once again the rich get richer and the poor get poorer as far as this tax situation. But I want to talk about it in the after show. As far as lightening this up, I got two things that I want to share with you. And this first one, it just really made me laugh. This dog takes a golf cart for a spin, crashes into a truck.
What?
Yeah, this is, I know the headline alone. You wouldn't believe it unless it was caught.
Is this the
camera.
Onion or?
Right. No. This is a 10-year-old dog named Titan. This was caught on the home video camera, hopped into the family's golf cart, accidentally sat on the gas pedal and took off in their truck. We were away, and when we came back, and I said to my husband, "Oh my God, someone's in our yard and took our cart for a joyride and smashed into my truck." Don't worry, Titan walks away. Okay, he's injury free. So this video is playing now. He is in this golf cart, and there he sat on this. Look at this thing, and it's taking a big white arc and bam,
boom,
right into the truck, and he walks away unscathed.
No problem.
Right. I thought that was hysterical.
That was awesome. I love that.
Thank God for home security cameras, because we do get some interesting footage sometimes now.
No kidding. It's a good thing the airbag didn't go off there.
There you go. There's another one that, I shop a lot on Amazon. Do you, Merle? I think you do.
I do occasionally. I got my whole microphone set up from Amazon,
right.
Actually.
What I like about it so much, and of course, I hate the monopoly thing. Amazon's too big for its britches, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look at Jeff Bezos, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
He's so rich, he's flying into space now.
Exactly. And that, again, it shows you where our society has kind of hit this pinnacle. But what they revolutionized for the better, the buying experience on Amazon. And what I love about it is, if you're looking for a new microphone or whatever, you read all these reviews. Now, if there are 50 reviews, 40 of them are bought, right? But if there's 1,000 reviews, they're not buying all. You could start to see.
You would think, right?
Yeah. So it's the reviews are so important, and I for one read the reviews. Well, we got a review here for Leggings that went viral. Really? And so a woman falls down a mountain and writes a hilarious review for these leggings. She says, "Order them now." And there's a picture of this kind of obese woman laying on the rocks of this mountain. She says, "Can I just say that I'll be reordering them in every color? Because here's me rolling and sliding down a mountain because I was too scared to get up. My leggings did not rip, not even a little bit. And I got stuck on rocks and trees." So let's see. Someone responds here. "Mountain sliding legging lady was right." She writes her own review.
She's got some on too.
Look at that photo. The skinny lady in purple leggings. She says, "These Raypose leggings off Amazon are exactly as good as the lady in the review says. Glad I bought 5.
Oh man, that is crazy.
That is hilarious.
The funny thing is, I can relate to that woman. Have you ever gone up like a high, like kind of, mountain or whatever, and then you're too scared to come down?
Yeah.
That's a bad place to be.
I had to help a few years back, help a neighbor off the roof of his house. because he got up there to do some work and he got too scared. I had to help him climb down the ladder.
Like you're like a scared kitten up there.
Yeah. So I like, you're, as long as you got someone, a big person holding the ladder, it's like,
right.
Okay. Ladders are really dangerous.
Dangerous, boy.
Really dangerous.
Yep. Don't go up them.
All right. I think we should wind up and go into the after show.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. We'll be with you soon. Go to over50startingover.com. Sign up, please. Or just sign up to our podcast and give us some 5 stars. Thanks a bunch. See you next week.